bombs, rum coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer. Send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over, over there, over there, over there. Send the word over.
Hey everybody, this is Joshua Littrell. Thank you so much for joining us today here on the Honor Across Arms podcast. I'm extremely honored and proud to have a great guest, Victor Soler, with us today. Victor, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well, sir. Doing really well. If you don't mind, before we get started, I'd like to give the listeners a little understanding of where you're located at geographically in the country. Where are you calling in from today?
Currently in Huntsville, Alabama.
Huntsville, Alabama. And where do you hail from originally, sir?
So I'm a military brat, moved around all my life. I claim Enterprise, Alabama, down south, as my home. I finished high school there, and that's where I entered the military from.
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to give full disclosure to our listeners here on the Honor Across Arms podcast today. Victor and I have known each other for a couple of decades now, and I consider you one of my closest and best friends in the whole entire world. So I'm extremely honored to have you as a guest on the Honor Across Arms podcast today, Victor. But the key that I think a lot of people don't understand is, first and foremost, you know, your history in the military, and then coming from being a brat, you know, that you mentioned earlier. We'll talk a little bit about that, but you are a two-service veteran. You and I joined the Air Force, but then you left the Air Force. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah, that is correct. I am from a military family, and I kept on, you know, as a young kid trying to do everything I could not to go in the military, but it's just where I belonged. It's where I felt most comfortable. So I ended up joining the Air Force in '99.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And your dad, he was an Army guy, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, he was Army. He joined in Vietnam. He actually was selected during the draft, but before he went and volunteered. So his number was picked, but the day he was picked, he went in to volunteer to ensure he got the job he wanted, and he wanted to be in aviation. So
Wow.
Although he was drafted, he went ahead and walked in and told the recruiters that, hey, here I am. I'm ready to do this. So.
Well, I thank your mom and your dad both for, you know, blessing us with you and your brother and your sister. You guys are phenomenal. And, you know, I'm a lucky man to call you a brother in arms. There's no doubt about it. And this is going to be a two-part podcast today, guys. So as you listen to this podcast, join us for the second part of this as well. So we're here with Victor Soler today. And Victor, we're going to start out with your Air Force career and joining up, and we'll just talk a little bit about, you know, why did you decide that? You alluded to just a moment ago that, look, you were trying to do everything you could to not join the military. What made you make that decision?
Yeah, I did. So growing up, you know, being an Army brat, being moved around, getting new friends, and, you know, changing locations, kept on changing, and I didn't want that for my family. I didn't want that for my future. I wanted something more stable. But what I didn't realize was how much the military meant to me, and being a military family, and that was a small sacrifice. And actually, it's actually what's made me who I am today. The moving and all the negative things people see about the military or perceive about the military. That's actually what has made me stronger. So I tried being a civilian and going to school, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right, and wasn't the family I needed.
Right. No, absolutely. And when I joined the military and met you, you were actually the very first brat I'd ever really met and then got to know. And you always told me how, you know, you had friends, but nobody was ever a lifelong friend. You'd moved around so much and it just wasn't possible. And then you and I became friends, and lo and behold, here we are 20 plus years later, bro. And we're still great friends. And that's something that I think was a little bit of a different change for you. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I had told you, I believe I told you early on when I said bye, you know, didn't really mean it the way it came out, but I was like, hey, you know, we'll see you around. Maybe I'll see you again. Maybe I won't. You know, friends are a dime a dozen was my thought process back then. But it changed, you know, and what's also, you know, changed during the times is the internet and the ability to keep in touch.
Yeah. Oh my
And
gosh.
as a military brat, somebody in the military, now there's really no excuse for you not to stay in touch unless you just don't want to.
No, that's so true. So true. And I think about it too. I look at you and your career. You deployed a number of different times. You have an amazing family, a wife, 2 children. And how hard was it to keep in contact with them? Now, why I ask that is because, when I deployed in '03, we didn't have Skype. We didn't have the FaceTimes. We didn't have all that stuff. We were still back using the prepaid phone cards.
Yeah,
So
I remember. I
it was
remember you actually
tough.
deployed for me. I remember that.
I did.
Yeah,
I
I was
did.
supposed to go, and they decided to send you instead of me, and I was upset about that. But it worked out. But contact through these deployments. I remember as a kid, we used to get tapes for my dad once a month. He would record it into tape,
Wow.
and we'd look forward to these tapes, and they're always a month old, and we'd listen to them. We'd all huddle around them, and then we'd send him a tape back, and and then the times that you went to Iraq, when I went to Iraq, it was prepaid phone calls or using the DSN lines, getting the party lines, and
Yeah.
that was a little bit difficult, but not better than obviously what my dad had it. And then the next deployment, it was, you're signing up for these internet plans, although they were outrageous. Um,
Right.
$200 a month for dial up.
Oh my gosh.
But it
So
was,
true.
we were able to, talk to the family. It was a blessing and a curse because, you're able to talk to the family, but you also had to be careful about how often you talk to the family too. I tell a lot of
Right.
young guys that are in the military, be careful on what you promise. Under promise, overachieve. If you could call every day, don't tell them that. I know
Hmm.
that's maybe bad to say, but you never know. And the day you cannot call, your wife and kids are going to be worried. So
Yeah.
don't promise them that. Give them once a week, or
Yeah. So
and then
true.
if it's more, that's better. But
Well, and OPSEC on that too. A lot of times they forget that they're in this scenario and they're just having a conversation with their family, and they forget that they can't say some of the things that they say. So you got to be
exactly,
aware of that too.
exactly. You got to
It's
be
pretty
aware of your
crazy.
surroundings. If you're videoing, what's behind you, everything.
Yeah.
It's helped the airmen, the soldier, the military person out, but there's a lot of things you got to be careful with to protect your family. And um, you got to always be thinking that too much is out there sometimes.
So true. So true. So you're there in high school. You're in Enterprise, Alabama, and that's Fort Rucker, right? If I remember correctly. Or,
Yes,
okay. So that's
yes,
an
the
Army
home of
town.
Army aviation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Why in
absolutely.
the world do you join the Air Force?
So at the time, my dream my whole life has been to fly, but during that time I had thick glasses. There was no way I was going to be a pilot. Um, my dad was in the army. He was a retired first sergeant at that point, and he had always told me, "Hey, he's like, if you're going to go in the service, know what you want and aim for that." And I really wanted an education. I kind of knew what the army was. I mean, I was a brat. I didn't really know. You don't really know as a kid.
Right. Right.
Uh, I just, I wanted to try the Air Force out, and I always had felt, that that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be around planes, and I joined the Air Force. And originally, I was going into the Army. I just could not find a job that I wanted to do with the recruiter. So I went to the Air Force recruiter, and I found my job there. We both did it. Bioenvironmental. It was dealing with safety and helping people out, and I like that. It was always busy. That's what there's always something different. Every day was something different, and that's kind of been my style. Try to do something different every day, not the same exact mission.
Well, and that makes life just go by a lot better, and it makes your job in the military go by a lot smoother and a lot quicker too. Where, we weren't in those situations a lot of times where if they didn't have flight missions, those guys were sitting in the hangar, not really doing much.
Right.
You know, or mechanics didn't have any
Right.
work on the docket. What are they going to do? They had great ping pong tables and pool tables. They
Yeah.
had all the stuff that we didn't
Yep.
have.
Exactly.
But you know, we worked every day. That was pretty neat. Now, you went in as a bioenvironmental engineer. Did you have that career picked out when you joined the Air Force?
Absolutely, yeah. Me and my roommate at the time, he went in open general, so he was going to find out his career in basic, and I was a little older than him. I was 21 at the time, so I was a little bit older. I tried college, I tried everything. It just that stuff wasn't working out. So I did the research and read about this job, and it was so diverse, and it also had some civilian applications. So if the Air Force didn't work out, I'd be able to translate that into civilian life, and it worked out really good. I've always tried to leave myself options, one or two options with any decision I make. That way, I'm not stuck in something, and that's how I handled picking that job for myself. Everybody's different, everybody's different in picking what they want. Some want to be that tip of the spear, and at that time, I didn't want to do that, but we'll talk about it later. But that's kind of how I ended up in the Army. My values changed and my opportunities changed. So, but at that point, I was really looking for education and diversifying, and trying to serve the best way I could serve at that time.
Well, you did a phenomenal job of it. And today's guest is Victor Soler, who is a two-career Army and Air Force veteran himself. And Victor's joining us from, where did you say again? Huntsville? Is that what you said today?
Alabama.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, Victor, you spent 10 years in the Air Force, and those options that you left yourself open with, you did a lot of things during that tenure in the Air Force. I looked at you not only as one of my closest friends and as a brother, but you were also a great mentor to you. I don't think I've ever really even said that to you, but you set the bar high, and that standard that you set in our organization and in our office was second to none, man. You were on the honor guard. You were airman of the quarter all the time. Airman of the year. I mean, you were the man essentially. But all those things that you did in the Air Force, when you joined the honor guard, was that something that you had actually put a lot of thought into? And then, did you enjoy that time with the honor guard?
Oh my gosh, that's probably some of the best times of my military career. I've been, a part of the process of honoring our deceased brothers and sisters for a long time, and the honor guard was my first opportunity at that, and that continued throughout to the end of my career, really. So yes, I've always absolutely wanted to be part of that process, honoring at the last moments, our brothers and sisters when they're, and their families, during that process, during the funeral. Also, I had some great opportunities to, present the colors at different locations, and I met the soldiers from the Bataan Death March. I was able to present the colors for them at one of their parties. It's just the amount of people that I was able to honor through the honor guard. It was great. It was a great time. I think I volunteered for 2.5 years before just the job itself. I wasn't able to, as you gain rank, you're just not able to volunteer as much or give as much as you can. But it was a great time.
I think a lot of people don't understand that the honor guard doesn't only just do funerals. And you had mentioned presenting the colors. Can you expand on that? What are some of the other responsibilities and roles that the honor guard plays?
Yeah, it's been some time, but I remember, I'll just go through my head. We did retirement ceremonies, honoring retirees. Would bring the colors and present those. There's been opportunities to present them at football games. There's been opportunities to march in parades, Veterans Day parades, plenty of dinners, plenty of social occasions. Anytime that the units or the individual had a request to bring the flag in, which we all honor and what we're there for, that's why we're there to protect it. That's what the honor guard did, and they did it as volunteers. It took our weekends, it took our nights with our families, our friends.